Nobody likes taking the tests. But since you've taken the first step of clicking on this particular video, I'm sure you're trying to convince yourself of some good, decent reasons of why you should take sim tests. So I'm here going to help you do exactly that. Okay. So why should you take sim tests? First and the foremost reason of taking sim test is to build your physical endurance. Okay. In our preparation journey, the journey that we are going through to ultimately be able to take our entrance exams for IPM, BBA, IPM programs and the BBA programs, all of these exams are around 2 hours or 2.5 hours, 100 minutes, 120 minutes, 150 minutes. In today's time, when you are going through your 11th grade, when you're going through your 12th grade, it is difficult that you have made yourself sit at a particular place physically constantly at one particular place for 100 minutes, 120 minutes. Believe me, that itself is a challenge. Okay, so just building your physical endurance, that you don't get tired and you are not with your phone, you are not with your music, you are not with your social media, is in itself a big achievement. And it does not come easy, believe me. You will know when you start doing this. Okay, so to get into this habit and to ensure that your body is able to take that sitting at one particular place without your back paining, without your hands paining, legs paining, whatever head paining, is in itself a big thing. So building that physical endurance is the first thing that you should start writing the sim test. Second, and equally as important or slightly more important, is mental endurance. Okay, for those 2 hours, for those 120 minutes, not being tired is very, very important, and not being tired mentally. You cannot afford to zone out in a 2-hour exam for like 10 minutes, 5 minutes. You don't know what you're doing, you're sleeping, you're looking here and there. It is just not allowed. You cannot do that. It is criminal. Okay, if you're going to have a look at the cutoffs for this particular, for all these exams, you're going to realize that every single minute counts in the exam. So for those 2 hours, not wondering about whether my friend has messaged me or not wondering about what music I'm going to hear for after the exam, what am I going to eat, how am I going to sleep, all the keep blocking out all those thoughts and only focusing on our question at hand is very, 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 very important. So building that mental endurance, mentally you are out of that space and in the space of taking exam is very, very important. And this is very underestimated, I'm telling you. But once you start doing it and once you religiously do that, once you religiously ensure that you are not zoning out, you are constantly with the paper, believe me, you will see the results. Okay, third and very important is acclimatizing yourself. Now there are a lot of things to acclimatize yourself with. First is the time. Just the notion of time, just seeing that so many questions are passing by me and there are only 120 minutes. I'm sure in the first few tests that you're going to you're going to take, you will realize that you're doing a particular RC, and before you know, you've spent like 10-15 minutes on a single RC. You're doing one particular set of logic, before you know, you've spent a good 7-8 minutes or 4-5 minutes on a single quant question. It is just not done. You cannot be doing that, but it happens because we are not used to it. So understanding that balancing of time, when to enter a question and very importantly when to exit a question, is very important. Understanding that kind of pressure that it brings on you when you realize that it is only 10 minutes, but I still have 25 more questions to go. And under that pressure, what do? Taking exams which are difficult. So if let's say you're doing a sim Indore, IPM Indore mock, and the questions that you see one after the other, you have no idea what is happening. You have never seen such a question and you continuously go on leaving the question, and the pressure that will build on your head, believe me, you will have to experience it to understand that pressure. And still not giving up under that pressure and keeping on till the last question in that pursuit of finding one simple question that I'm able to solve is very, very, very valuable. Okay, and also finally understanding the type of questions that are actually being tested in this particular exam. So once you yourself go through this experience, only then you'll be able to build a holistic, a complete understanding of what happens inside those 120 minutes, what happens during those test time. Okay. unlike our 10th grade studies, unlike our 12th grade studies, where we are pushed to attempt entire paper, where we are pushed to we're scolded if we leave 10 marks. We ourselves feel so bad when we are not able to attempt 10 marks, 15 marks in our 12th board exam, for example. But here in our IPM BBA journey, as mentors, we will tell you to not attempt a few questions. Okay, we will train you so that you are not able to, you are consciously able to leave a particular questions, consciously able to come back to questions, but not do it right away. And some questions you do it right away, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of test taking strategies. Only knowing your content is half the job done, but understanding how to take a particular test, each test varies in its strategy. Some tests may have sectional cutoff and sectional timers. Some tests may not have sectional cutoffs, sectional timers. So the strategies is very different. Some tests may have negative marking, some tests may not have negative marking. So again, the strategy differs. In some tests, the order of the section is fixed. In some tests, you can choose the order of the sections, which means again the strategy will differ. Every exam will require that right amount of curated preparation as a test taking strategy. This will also happen only when you are doing the mocks, only when you're doing the sim test. It cannot just come to you on the day of the exam. Okay, so test taking strategies also have to be tried and perfected in all our mocks before we go on to the actual exam. Okay, once you do enough number of tests, 4, 5, 6, after that, when you sit with your mentors, you'll be able to identify, you'll be able to see a pattern across all the 5, 6 mocks, and you'll be able to identify your strengths, your weaknesses, your chapters that you need to work on, chapters that you're very good at, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this identification is also very important, knowing your strengths so that you don't waste a lot of time doing the same thing that you're good at and that you love it. It's a confirmation bias, but you have to be very conscious about not getting into it. At the same time, we tend to ignore our weaknesses, which we cannot. Okay, so for example, let's say if you're preparing for IPM Indore, you cannot afford to ignore your weaknesses. It has sectional cutoff. You will have to be at least average at an IIM Indore's weak section. Okay, whereas if you go to IIM Rohtak, it has only an overall cutoff and not a sectional cutoff. Okay, so in Rohtak, you may want to leverage one section, the maximum, and the other section as much as possible, not really stressing on it. But as I told you, papers which have sectional cutoffs, you just cannot afford to suck at a particular section. You have to be at least average. You have to be slightly more than average to clear that cutoffs. And so all of these insights will come only when you know what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and that you will know only when you've taken enough number of mocks of that particular paper. Okay, so once you do these, once you write enough number of tests, then comes the most important part of creating a focused study plan. Once you know your strengths, weaknesses, once you've taken enough number of tests and a clear pattern is established, now I know, for example, that I'm not able to attempt SICI, simple interest, compound interest questions consistently across all the papers. I have not been doing parajumbles correct in all my 5 mocks. So I know that I'm not weak at verbal, but maybe I'm weak at parajumbles. I'm not weak at quant, I'm weak at maybe only geometry. So then I'm able to create a focused study plan. I don't have to sit with myself and say, I need to do better at quant. Quant is a big subject. You cannot keep doing quant. You have to do modules, you have to do chapters. So you have to narrow down into that. And that insight will come only when you do enough number of mocks. So once you create a focused study plan, you'll be able to study exactly for your weaknesses and better your performance every single time. And once you start taking the test regularly, another habit that you need to get on is into analysis of each test. For a 2-hour test that you're writing, you should bare minimum sit for another 2 hours, 3 hours and analyze the test. Go through each of the questions solution, understand whether the method that you used and the method that is shown in the mock is it good, is it bad, how does it compare, solve all the questions that you could not in the test, understand the complexity level of the questions, evaluate yourself whether you left the right questions, whether you attempted the right questions, and so on and so forth. growth. Unless you analyze the test, unless you build those data points about yourself, you build those insights about yourself, you will not be able to improve in the next mock. So between one mock and the second mock, if the analysis is not present, do not expect a very different outcome of this mock vis-a-vis this mock, okay? Because there is no value addition that has happened to you as a person. That analysis is something that is going to make you better in all the subsequent tests, okay? So once you get into the habit of writing tests regularly, also get into the habit of analyzing your test regularly, and keep adding value to yourself regularly, so that by the end, when we reach the actual exam, we have done well, we have prepared well, and we've done everything that we could have. And that's all that will matter. See you.